Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Ken D. Foster. Ken is the author of The Courage to Change Everything, Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom to Awakening Your Inner Genius. You can find out more about Ken D. Foster and his wonderful work at kendfoster.com, couragetochange.us, and voicesofcourage.us. And while you're there, definitely check out his radio show, Voices of Courage, that's syndicated in over 100 countries. Welcome, Ken D. Foster.
Well, I'm so honored to be here with you, Catherine, and I love the topic of the show, natural healing. It's very near and dear to my heart. I'm looking forward to this interview.
All right, so let's talk about change, which is the topic of your book, because a lot of us want to be healthier, but we have inner resistance to changing. So your book talks about courage. Most people hear the word courage and think of like running into a burning building. How do you define courage?
Well, first of all, let me say this, that courage is the bridge between staying stuck and having the life that you really want. And so it's very important ingredient in when we talk about change. And most people have undeveloped courage. And we're going to talk about some tips on how to really develop that courage today. So I define courage as this. Courage is it's an energy. It's a frequency. It's let me give you the opposite. Let's talk about fear. When you are afraid, your heart might start palpitating. You might get stressed out. Your mind might shut down. You know the feeling of fear. We all do, right? Well, courage has a feeling too to it. And courage, when what happens is all of a sudden you have a sense of expansion in your heart, in your body. All of a sudden your mind seems to be alive and alert. You're ready to take on something new. I'm sure most of us have experienced a sense of courage when we've done something new that we haven't ever done before, right? I remember me, Catherine, walking into the KCBQ radio station here in San Diego with my first show. And I remember I'd never done, I'd done live radio one other time, and I walked in and it was all new, and it took courage to do that. But after I got there, then that courage started to kick in. I really started to tune in and connect with myself so I could express what I wanted to express. Make sense?
Absolutely. Now, there was a psychologist by the name of Prochaska who talked about the 5 stages of change. And for our audience, let's talk about this because this has to do with natural healing. So let's say you want to lose weight, or you've been diagnosed with cancer really recently, and you realize, gosh, I really need to change my diet, right? So you've been doing whatever you've been doing, or eating the same way or thinking the same way for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So here are the 5 stages of change. The first stage is pre-contemplation. When you're in pre-contemplation, the cons of changing outweigh the pros. So you think, I really want to eat better, but I really like my key lime pie and I don't really want to get off the couch. I'm kind of comfortable the way I am. And the second stage of change is contemplation, where you're thinking about changing. And in contemplation, the pros and cons are about equal. So it's like, I've gotten this diagnosis from my medical doctor or my medical intuitive, and I realize I need to do something different, but I'm still not sure about it. The third stage of change is actually planning. So this is where you come up with a blueprint for your optimal health. It's like, okay, right. I'm going to join this gym. I'm going to join this meditation class. I'm going to buy a juicer and start juicing. You know, whatever it is, I'm going to get more sleep. I'm going to deal with my emotions. So you come up with a plan. And then that fourth stage is actually action where you're doing it. And the fifth stage is maintenance. So you've made the change and you've got to maintain it. And because we're human, we can sort of slide back and forth between these 5 stages of change. So Ken D. Foster, you are an expert on change. What sort of advice do you have for people about figuring out where they are in the stages of change and how they can move forward?
Well, let's talk about healing, and I agree with you on those stages of change, and we all go through something similar to that. And first of all, I want to say too, Catherine, just call me Ken. It's good. We don't need Ken D. That's my brand, but just informal with me is fine. Okay, so when we heal anything, we have to heal on 4 levels. We have to heal it mentally. We have to heal it emotionally. We have to heal it in our body physically, and we also have to heal it spiritually. So there's 4 levels of healing, and if we miss one of those levels, a lot of times that whatever we're fighting, whether it's cancer, whether it's torn ligaments or broken bones, or whether it's a relationship, they all on these levels, they really need to look at it. So, you know, on the mental level, first of all, we, like you said, Catherine, we have to look at what we're thinking. What are our predominant thoughts around this? Oh, I'll never heal. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is gonna be with me for the rest of my life. I'll never be able to get over this. Those kind of thoughts, you're tuning into a thought frequency of fear. And when you tune into something like that, you're going to get those thoughts. So first step is we have to set our mind to focus on the possibility of this healing. So we start to focus on what's possible it could heal. It's possible that I could be 100%. It's possible that I could take some courageous steps outside of what I've ever thought before to get this happening. So we tune into possibility. Second thing, on the emotional level, so many of us carry those emotions that they get stuck physically in our being. So there does need to be some emotional clearing. I have a technique that I've developed over the last 20 years, and it's in a book called Release, Renew, Evolve. Catherine, when anybody buys my book, The Courage to Change Everything, I'm giving them my whole program. It's about a $200 program, just because I thought when I wrote that book, I thought, you know, just reading the book itself, it will help you to reprogram your thinking. But, you know, we really need to pour. It's like the glass all full. We got to pour it out, right? So that's the emotional side. The physical side, you know, if you have to go through therapy, you have to go through surgery, you have to whatever you need. That's an important piece. And some people, I want to say this, Catherine, I had a person that I know that had a little spot on their arm. And we told him about 3 years before he had his arm amputated, this is just cancer, right? And he denied it. And he was definitely afraid of going to doctors. So, you know, we've got to do what it takes, whether it's on the physical with a medical doctor or with a naturopath. We've got to pursue all avenues. And then the spiritual piece, you know, that's that piece where we have to get the lesson. We're here growing and evolving and becoming all we can be. But, you know, there are lessons here. How did we bring this upon ourselves? And some people go, I didn't have anything to do with it. Well, maybe not, but it's there in your space right now. So what has to happen for you to change, maybe grow your spiritual power, maybe grow yourself to be able to heal these things? So that's kind of how I get it.
You know, I just really love your take on things, Ken, and it's very much in alignment with the way that I think as a medical intuitive, but I would add one more level, and I'm going to explain it forward and back. So you have a physical body, you know what that is. That's your bones, your muscles, your organs, all that good stuff. Then you have an energy body. Your energy body includes your acupuncture system, your chakras, and your breath, okay? And you know when you have good energy, and you also know when you're tired. Then there's the emotional body, which Ken talked about. Those are your feelings. And the emotional body is the largest part of anybody. And emotions can shut down literally any physiological process. Then you've got your mind, which is your thoughts and your beliefs. And finally, there's your soul. And you have to understand that you are a soul, you have a body. Now, the way to understand this from my perspective is that your soul controls your mind controls your emotions, right?
That's right.
Your emotions control your energy, and your energy controls your physical body. And when you want to get well, by the time you've been diagnosed with disease, you have to push it out of that system. So disease actually begins in your energy field. It's going to begin in the soul level, in your mind level, in the emotions, or in your energy field, and then comes into the physical. And when you want to get well, you have to push it out of the physical, out of the energetic, out of the emotional, mental, and spiritual. And where you and I think very much in alignment, Ken, is that it's my experience that when you actually work on all 5 levels, you supercharge your healing, right? Like I talked just this past week with a new client who's been diagnosed with colon cancer. And she thought, well, all I have to do is do chemo, right? And I said to her, well, I fully support you on that. My brother's a doctor, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, uncle. We love our doctors. They have our place. But you also want to change your biological terrain. You have to change what you've been eating. And you definitely have to address the emotional, mental, and spiritual.
Well, I really love that, and I think you're dead on. And I would just I want to plus what you said, because I think it's so important. Everything. Everything. I'm going to say it in another way, so maybe our listeners can get it. Everything comes out of this thing we call God or spirit or universe or whatever. Everything comes out of that, and out of that comes individualized souls. So spirit is over the soul. The soul is over the mind. Okay, that's the conscious mind, the subconscious and superconscious mind. The soul is over mind. Mind is over emotion, as you mentioned, Catherine. Emotions over our actions, how we feel, we move. Our actions over and our actions are over really our destiny. Okay, what you do, will be a direct result of whether you heal or not. So, based on that, and I love that you brought in the energy body. Thank you for that. That's such an important piece. So I'll tell you a quick story. 2 years ago, I was in I was skiing up in Mammoth, California, and it was the end of the day. I was with my little grandson. I was a little tired, and I had tightened my ski bindings down really tight to ski some of the black diamond stuff, the difficult runs on the mountain. And we were coming down, and all of a sudden I hit this piece of ice, and my skis went out from underneath me, and they started spinning in the air and flopping back and forth, and it tore my knee up completely. So I tore my MCL, ACL, medial meniscus, and I had a bone fracture. And really bad stuff. But I practice what we're talking about. So I thought, okay, first of all, I got to connect spiritually, which I did. I totally went in. I have a practice that instantly the pain was gone for me, just like that.
Wow.
But then, of course, they brought me down the mountain on the sled, and they took me to the hospital, and they said, hey, you're going to have to operate on this thing. I said, okay, I'm open. What chance do I have of not operating? Well, operating on this knee. They said, well, you got a 10% chance of not operating on the knee. So I got back to San Diego. I did an MRI, and I said, Doc, do you think I have to operate? He says, well, you got about a 30% chance of not having it. I said, I'll take that. Doc, I'm going to do a program that I know I need to do, and I'll go to physical therapy like you suggest, but why don't we wait to see the surgery? And he's like, I don't think you should do that. I think you should go to surgery. I think we need to do this. Now, most people, I wouldn't recommend doing what I've been doing, but I've been practicing these techniques for decades. So I said, okay, I'm gonna work on it. So to your point, energy field, energy work. First thing I did after the spiritual work was the energy work. And I went and saw a couple of my energy healing friends, one that does this thing called Bowen work, Bowen work, which disconnects the brain from the pain. She gave me a formula to take down the swelling. Within 3 days of this horrific accident, there was no swelling in my leg.
It's a miracle.
Within 2 weeks, I was back on riding my bicycle about 60 miles. So, we can, and of course I did the work, right? I did the mentally, I cleared the blocks, I went through, I did the emotional work, I did what I need to do physically. I'm just saying this is not about me. This is about helping you to understand there are a lot of ways to heal your body, but we do have to, it wasn't one way for me. In fact, all healing for me, and I tell this to my clients all the time, it's a quest. Because you got yourself into a place where now you have to understand a little more, maybe about how the body works, what food to put in your body, how much exercise to put in your life, what to think, how to grow. It's about growing.
I love that. Healing is about growing. Now, Ken D. Foster, you are the author of the book, The Courage to Change Everything. What role does self-awareness play in having the courage to change?
That's a really wonderful question. What role does self-awareness? I think it has everything to do with it. And what I mean by that is this. Let's just take corporate America. Problem in corporate America right now is that about 75% of the people that are working in corporate America are unhappy. They're dissatisfied with their job, according to some recent surveys. Now, why is that? You have to ask yourself, why is that? So there's something going on that those people, whoever they are, they need to change. We weren't brought here to be unhappy. Happiness, by the way, is a choice. Love is a choice. Healing is a choice. This is a choice we can make. But if you're in that place, you can hear me talk and go, well, yeah, it's a choice. What am I going to do? Well, the reason I wrote the book, The Courage to Change Everything, Daily Strategies, Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom to Awaken Your Inner Genius. The reason I wrote that book, by the way, it took me about 6 years to get this one right, is that I realized at a very deep level that working with clients over the last 24 years, the ones that really changed, they didn't need a lot more information most of the time. Well, they get some, but they needed wisdom. They needed to understand how the mind works, how they can start to reprogram their thinking. They also needed specific success strategies to be able to heal their bodies, their minds, their businesses, their relationships. And they also needed to realize how to focus their mind and not be distracted all over the place. They needed to get, instead of distraction, they needed traction. So I wrote that book, and what happens is I created a delivery strategy that really isn't out there. For me, I spent 20 years reading information and wisdom from the East and cutting edge wealth principles from the West, trying to apply all this in my life and trying to grow and change. And by the way, it worked. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have something that every single day I could read and it would focus my mind, and by the end of the year, I would have changed substantially. So that's why I wrote that book. And it's daily. We read it daily, about 10 minutes a day. And I can almost guarantee, I've had some reviews of people that are going, the way you start this book and the way that this is designed will change anybody's mind for the better. Of course, you got to apply it.
Okay. So in your new book, The Courage to Change Everything, you talk about the importance of becoming aware of our inner genius. What do you mean by our inner genius?
Well, we all have an inner genius. All of us are born with it. And it's like anything else, we have to develop it. So inner genius to me means a couple things. It's the superconscious mind. It's the mind that Albert Einstein and Stephen Jobs and Bill Gates and just about anybody else tune into. It's the mind that, what do I want to say about that? You know, Einstein said, you know, what was his quote? I'll paraphrase it. You know, basically, wow, it's flipped out of my mind. Well, I guess I won't quote it today. But anyway, he talks about, you know, all he wants to know is about the thoughts of God. And listen, that there is really the superconscious mind is the thoughts of wisdom, the thoughts of God. We can all tune into it. Now, I'll tell you a story about me learning how to initially tune into it. When my wife and I got together about 21 years ago, we'd be driving down the street and she'd say, "Ken, go left." And I would say, "Well, I know how to go. I know this path. I've been through this a million times. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go right." And inevitably, we would hit traffic or an accident or something go on. Now, this went on quite a while. She would say, "Go one way," and I'd go the other. And finally, I was like, well, she's an amazing woman. I really love her. Why does she keep getting this right all the time? I get it wrong. And I started realizing my wife is very, very intuitive. So I thought, you know, I need to learn that piece in my life. I need to learn that. So I talked to her about it. We talked. She said, you know, stillness is the key to this. Being still, quieting the mind. You know, sometimes we get intuitive downloads in the shower, but we're not thinking much. We're just taking a shower, or we're in nature and boom, well, all of a sudden we get the new idea that's going to change our life forever. So that a long story around this is that this intuition or this tuning into the genius has to be developed. I think the 3 ways to develop that I would recommend is, number one, get still on a daily basis. And if you haven't learned to meditate, learn to meditate. But if you can't do that, that's okay. Spend some time with yourself, quiet your thoughts, still your mind, and learn how to ask questions that will start to tune you into the inner genius. Well, my first book was called Ask and You Will Succeed. And there's 1,001 ordinary questions to create extraordinary results. And I say that because most people have about 60,000 thoughts a day. We've always heard that, right? Well, we have the same old thoughts day in and day out. Why is that? Because we're asking the same question pretty much, and we're focusing on the same thing pretty much. So if you ask a question like, I'll give you a great one. If I were courageous, what would I do differently today? I'll give you another one. If I was courageous, what would I do in my relationship that would make it even better? Or if I was courageous, what would I talk to my boss about at work? So courage is the bridge from being stuck to unleashing what we want. But we have to tune into that courage. And by the way, when I'm asking those questions, you are tuning in to a higher level of consciousness, most likely than where you're at. And when you do that consistently, what happens is all of a sudden you start to increase your energy field. Like Catherine said, your energy starts to vibrate at a higher level. It's amazing. Sometimes I wake up and I'm kind of an old guy these days, man. I have more energy than most 20, 30 years olds. And, you know, I'm still doing triathlons. So, you know, it has to do with how we use our body, how we use our mind.
I love that. So, you know, another way, if I'm listening to your definition of inner genius, it is intuition. And as a professional medical intuitive, then this is what I do for a living. One of my 10 books is called Unlimited Intuition Now. And I agree with you then, Ken, that, you know, getting still is essential. All right. But I would say I would develop it a little bit even more than that. There's a really great quote: "When the ego dies, the soul awakes."
I love that.
I say that again. When the ego dies, the soul awakes. So you know, people come to me all the time. I have a client coming from California for a 2-day intensive. He's a financial guy. He wants to develop his intuition. And, you know, you basically, when I was studying medical intuition, we talked about you have to show up and get out of the way. So what does that mean? You're fully present to what is, and you get your ego out of the way. So what's your ego? Definitely your fear, right? So accessing your courage helps you to bypass the fear, but it's also everything you think you know, right? And I have 26 years full-time experience in natural healing. I'm always studying. I love to study. But when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, when I'm reading your body, mind, and soul, I have to show up and get out of the way and read what's there. So in my mind, the word intuitive, to access this inner genius that Ken's talking about, you have to become in tune. And what does that mean? You have to drop the ego facades. You know, so many people, I'm like, you're addicted to your ego, right? You're addicted to this presentation that you have of yourself, of, you know, to the world, wanting to be right, wanting to look good. We all want to be right and look good, right? But what is your soul saying to you, right? And in my book, Unlimited Intuition Now, I talk about there's 4 kinds of intuition: claircognizance, psychic knowing, that's my primary gift, where you just know stuff with no advance warning, no supporting evidence. Clairaudience, which is receiving information through sound, words, or vibrations. Clairvoyance, which is where you're getting visual symbols or being able to read auras, see angels. And finally, clairsentience, which is psychic feeling, picking up the vibe, reading the energy. And that's probably the most common and easiest to develop kind of intuition. So how do you, Kendi Foster, access your own inner genius? You talked about meditating. Are there other ways that you use?
Well, absolutely. And here I wanna say something about what you just talked about, because I wanna work with that. I love what you're sharing here. You know, when we're talking about surrendering our knowing, right? We're talking about, first of all, getting out of the ego knowing, okay? But here's the thing. Here's where people get confused. Like, I know I'm sitting at a desk. I know there's a TV here. I know there's a camera on me. I know that you and I are speaking, okay? So there is a knowing there. But that's not the knowing that we need to go into. So when we're in the material world, when we're just focused on material, we cannot really tune into the inner genius, the inner intuitive genius that's there. We really need to let go of the material and tune in to the soul, to the spirit. And by being able to do that, there's a different level of knowing that comes through us. One of the ways that I tune into that is writing in the morning. In fact, I think it was Julia Cameron, The Artist Way, that I initially took that book and that practice. I think she challenged me to write 3 pages a day. And the first page would be just my ego, my head. The second page might be a little more conscious, but by about the 3rd page, all of a sudden there's something else I'm tuning into. It's just coming through me. And I can assure you, when I go back and read some of my books and read some of the things that have come through, I don't necessarily think at that level all day long. There's something greater that comes through us. In fact, I tell people that, you know, you don't even write books. Books write you. And when we can get out of the way to do that, this greater force comes through. So one way you can do it is by journaling. One way you can do it is, as we discussed, meditation will help develop that inner knowing, that intuitive part of ourselves. You know, where motion stops, spirit begins. So it's about stopping, stilling, being quiet. You know, the more quiet we can become, I believe the more we can heal. And I'll tell you why. I believe that if you create an environment, and I don't believe it, I know it, if you create the right environments, to heal your mind. If you create the right environment for your mind. John Muir, the explorer in the Yosemite Valley back in the 1800s, used to take people from San Francisco that were ill with all kinds of diseases. He'd just take them up in the mountains for a couple, 3 weeks, create the right environment, let them slow down, de-stress, open their hearts and mind, talk about nature, focus on God, focus on love, and they go back and they're 100% healed. They created the right environments. Well, it's the same thing with our intuition. If you want to tune into your intuition, if you want to become clairaudient, clairvoyant, omnipresent, whatever you want to experience in yourself, it takes time and it takes discipline. It's a practice. For me, I'm meditating morning and night, and I try to get in a couple hours a day. So everybody's a little different. I'm not saying you need 10 hours a day or 2 hours a day. I'm saying you need maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, but create a focus. Learn how to go deep within yourself. And all of a sudden things start to come out. In fact, every single challenge, Catherine, I've ever had over the last 2 decades has come out of meditation. My challenges come in, they're there. And then I get the answers, the solutions in meditation. It's pretty amazing.
I just love that story. And, I begin literally every day with prayer, breath work, and meditation. Me personally, I pray literally all day long. Like I couldn't even tell you how many prayers that I say. So it's an inner habit of prayer. I have to tell you this funny story because it's about meditation. So I'm 60 years old and I've taught yoga now for 24 years. And I remember years ago, I think I was in my early 30s and I went to California to study yoga. This is a funny story. So I'm out in California practicing yoga for about 12 days, feeling amazing, organic food, fresh air, nature, like you're talking about. Then I get to the LA airport to get back to Atlanta, right? I get there and the plane is late, right? We've all been there, right? And, me being me at that time, I was really packing my schedule. So I got there, I found out my plane was going to get in at 3 in the morning and I was supposed to start seeing clients at 6 in the morning. Right? So I just started freaking out. And, first thing I did, I went and bought a cookie, right? I'm like, I'm doing cookie therapy, right? I'm like, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to go eat a chocolate chip cookie. So I'm sitting there on the floor of the LA airport, eating my chocolate cookie. And this man comes up to me. We just start talking, really kind man. And as I'm talking to him, I just start to calm down, right? And then I started asking him, then we started talking about his cat, my cat. And then I asked him what he did. And I'll never forget, here's the point of the story. He said, I'm a meditation teacher. And I said, well, how many hours a day do you meditate? He said, oh, only about 5 hours a day. And this is so funny. I look back at how cheeky I was, right? This is a while ago. And I remember saying to him, do you ever feel guilty that you're not doing anything?
I love it.
And yet it was just, here's the point. When you meditate like Ken does, and I don't spend 5 hours a day or hours every day, but I do meditate every morning. You literally create this energetic field, this environment in which everybody around you can feel better, right? And so this gentleman and I mean, literally he changed my whole energy and my emotions and my mind just sitting there talking to him. And I remember when we finally got on the plane, I was really disappointed because I wasn't going to get to sit next to him. And I remember thinking to myself, you're so cheeky, asking a meditation teacher, do you feel guilty about not doing anything? You're creating peace on earth.
Well, that's a great story. And I think there's a lot to that story. It's like, I've been to the airports too, and been stressed out and going like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And I think, it's funny. Of course, my prayer is always, God, don't change my circumstances, change me. But it's sometimes that works, and it's I remember. But the yoga, the meditator came to you, Catherine. When I was sitting here tuning in was that he invited you to remember who you were, maybe non-verbally or just through his words or his energy field. But a lot of us, if we just remember who we are, the infinite, powerful, loving, kind, joyful spirits that we all are, it's at the essence of us. It's at the core of us. Some of us, you gotta pull the rust off the soul to see it, but it's there. And if we remember more and more who we are, what happens is what we're talking about, tuning into the inner genius, or tapping into your courage, or stepping yourself into a new area of your life, it starts to unfold. Again, The Courage to Change Everything is a book that helps people to take off their limitations, take off their worry, their stress, their unfettered dreams, and be able to remember who they are, to step into that every single day. How cool is that? I mean, if we just remember who we are and how powerful we are every day, and don't let fear stop us. We are on a planet that's basically in fear most of the time. And we're all go in and out of it. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my pencil. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my relationship. I'm afraid I'm going to not have enough money. I'm afraid the job's not right. I'm afraid I'm not good enough, bad enough, worried. I'm afraid I'm not the one that's going to be the right person for this job. So this fear stuff just permeates us. And the bridge is courage. From fear to an empowered life is courage. We have to develop that courage. And how we do that is by doing something a little different every day. Stretching ourselves a little bit. If you're meditating 10 minutes, maybe you go to 15 minutes. If you're not getting the results you want, then you go, well, okay, who has that information? Where can I find that person or persons? If your relationships are falling apart, it takes courage to go, gosh, I'm part of this problem. I've got to go get me some help. If you're in a medical situation and all the doctors don't know what they're doing, you call Catherine and you say, Catherine, what's going on here? It takes courage to do that. And a lot of us have it in there, but we have to start to build that muscle more and more. And when we do, our life gets better and better.
So Ken D. Foster, you're the author of The Courage to Change Everything. Very powerful information. And, as a medical intuitive, I say there's only 4 problems ever: blocks, congestion, resistance, or interference. So, we all like to think interference. So an interference would be like a tree fell down in the middle of the road and you can't get to the meeting, right? But this resistance, this unwillingness that Ken is writing about in his book is, I feel, the essence of everything. It's the turning point. If you can overcome your inner resistance. So you talked about courage, which of course, as you already know, is a quality of the heart. And as we strengthen our heart, in Chinese medicine, we say, there's that phrase, if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. And in Chinese medicine, they say, if your heart ain't happy, nobody's happy, right? So how can we expand our heart capacity in order to expand our courage so that we're open to change?
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because you're right. The word courage comes from the Latin word cur, which means to speak one's heart. And I would say it's to connect with one's heart. And then we speak our heart. And that courage cannot be there when we are the skeptic, when we're in doubt, when we're in a place of uncertainty, when we're when we're in a place of low energy, low vibration, it's always inside of us, but we have to start to be able to step into greater questions and greater ways of seeing ourselves. A lot of people have a negative self-image of themselves, and which results in and they don't go walking around telling anybody this, but there are people like myself and like Catherine that can see energy. We can see there's no hiding out. We know exactly what's going on. And, so if you can get out of the denial long enough, denial is another word for resistance. Okay. If you can start to say, you know what, if I were courageous and, I've had this health challenge for a while, I know that there's other ways to do things differently. Maybe I can talk to somebody that I've never talked to before. I had a friend of my brother's call me. We grew up together, and he has Parkinson's disease. Oh, and he says, Ken, I'm thinking about doing a fast. Can you help me? And I said, absolutely. And so I gave him some direction on where to go and what to do and how to do it properly, and how to talk with his doctor. And now this guy is on 8 or 10 medications. His goal is to get off all his medication because he did the fast. He went 4 days on a master cleanse. He started to feel himself again. He said, I didn't even take my medication while I was on this. I said, well, check with your doctor. But listen, these things can change really quickly when we let go of that resistance. Listen, I've had so much resistance to so many things in my life. In fact, early on, people would call me a mismatcher. They would say, oh yeah, just like I gave you the story of my wife, go left, I'd say go right. It's light outside. No, I think there's a little darkness coming in. Well, I think you need to go get this job. I'll never get that job. I need to get this job. So mismatching all the time. If that's by the way, that's a symptom of you being resistant. So if that is you, the first step is to bring it to awareness. When we bring it to awareness, then we can do something about it. You can't change anything we don't acknowledge, right? So that's a piece. But with the book, The Courage to Change Everything, what I'm helping you do is let go of resistance, open up the possibility in ways that you've never been able to see before. In fact, I help people see the unseeable, know the unknowable, and do the impossible. And I interview amazing guests like Catherine also on my show, Voices of Courage. And for those of you that would like to listen to that, you can just ask Siri or Cortana or Alexa, play Voices of Courage podcast, or you can go to our site to listen to all of our replays, voicesofcourage.us, voicesofcourage.us. So
now a lot of us, we already have some courage in there. Like I said, there are these five.
We're all born with it. We all have it.
Yeah. And so how can we, accelerate it, expand it?
I love acceleration. Yes, let's talk about that. Okay, so here's the thing. Pick one of your challenges. Okay, I've got a challenge in a relationship. I got a challenge with the IRS. I've got a challenge with my job. I've got challenges with my health, whatever it is, okay? Whatever that is, determine, number one, set up your intention. I'm going to figure out how to heal this or change this or develop this or grow this. Number one. Well, of course, maybe number one first is you got to acknowledge there's something wrong going on that you want to change. You want to look at your results. If you're not getting the results that you want, you make the change. So after you acknowledge this is it, you set your intention. The next thing is that you take courageous actions on a consistent basis every day. So you ask yourself, what are the 3 courageous actions I'm going to take every single day? And number 4 is you want to probably go and get the book, The Courage to Change Everything. And you want to start to program your mind every single day with success thoughts, with thoughts of healing, with thoughts of love, with thoughts of kindness, with thoughts of opening your your presence, your power back up. You want to remember who you are. And don't forget what we talked about too. Meditation is a real important piece of this. Or if you're not a meditator, don't worry about it. We're not preaching you have to meditate. But what we are saying is that if you want to grow your consciousness, if you want to expand your presence, if you want to feel more joy, more happiness in your life, the only one that's going to be able to do that is you. Nobody's going to be able to do it for you. So we all, I started taking little baby steps when I first started on this path. And I just did what best I could do every day. But I did something to make sure that I was moving in the direction of feeling more joy and happiness in my life. I hope that helps. Resistance will stop everybody. If you make a commitment, I'm not going to be resistant to spirit. I'm going to open my mind and start to look for the magic, miracles, and synchronicity in this world. When you start to open your mind and go that direction, life gets better and better.
So Ken D. Foster, you're the author of The Courage to Change Everything. Any final thoughts for our audience?
Sure. If you want to get the book, go couragetochange.us, couragetochange.us. I hope you'll check out the book. And my final thought is this. Catherine, I love what you're doing. I love this show. I think that shows like this need to grow around the world because in my understanding is that the changes we need to make right now are really important for all of us in this planet. It's probably not going to come from the presidents on down in the different countries. It's probably going to come from the people on up. And so if you're one of those change makers and you're willing to do the work to step up, then you also have to get your message in the world just like Catherine is doing. So I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll check out the couragetochange.us, and I hope you'll continue on your path remembering the greatness that's within you.
Wonderful message. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and the Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Ken D. Foster, you can find him on the internet at kendfoster.com, voicesofcourage.us, and couragetochange.us. Definitely listen to his radio show, The Voices of Courage, and remember that when you want to become healthier, you need to develop the courage to change. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.